Hello and welcome to episode 30 of the Gangrene Against the World podcast. I'm Allan Simon. The New York Jets won another football game. They are now 2-7 after they beat the Cleveland Browns 27-20 at MetLife Stadium. They bookend their bye with wins against the Bengals and Browns, two of the worst teams in football. But you know what? The Jets and Aaron Glenn have seen to right the ship a little bit as they head towards the back half of their schedule. It was a sloppy game against the Browns. The Browns are playing with a quarterback, Dillon Gabriel, who coming into the day was the lowest rated quarterback who started a game, according to Pro Football Focus. He looked okay. He did not look like the worst quarterback in football against the Jets. That could be partly an indictment on the Jets defense, but also Gabriel getting better and better week after week. He has a nice chemistry going with Jerry Jeudy, clearly, as Jeudy had a decent game. And overall, the Jets continue to show why really they should be a mediocre team. They are a 500 team or a slightly below 500 team cosplaying as one of the worst teams in football. And how you end up at 2-7 despite all the metrics saying you're an average team is losing close games where they've lost 5 games by 1 possession, and really, really bad quarterback play. And that's how a team that should have 4 wins, 3 wins, should be competing for a playoff spot in a really weak AFC, ends up out of it, even though they're starting to play better football in the middle of the year. And Justin Fields was atrocious against the Browns. Under 100 total yards, almost all of his passing yards coming from one screen pass to Breece Hall, who had a great day. And Justin Fields has completely lost the ability to play the quarterback position. It's unfortunate to see. Now they still got to win. And because they've won 2 games in a row with Aaron Glenn doing this ridiculous, I'm not going to tell you who the quarterback is, stop asking me game, which is childish. And the fact that he's now made it part of his persona is extremely frustrating. But they've won 2 games since he's done that, and on a short week against the Patriots coming up on Thursday, in which the Patriots are really good, and your best chance might be hoping that Justin Fields finds something here. But Justin Fields is not a functioning quarterback right now. And what saved them in this game against the Browns is by doing something they've never done before. And on back-to-back opportunities, they have a kick return for a touchdown and a punt return for a touchdown. And this is a special teams that has been one of the best in football. And usually when you have one of the best special teams in football and you have a slightly below average defense and an offense with good skill players like Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, that should be somewhat of a competent team. But again, because the quarterback play is so bad and the coaching had been so bad in the beginning of the year, that's why they have 2 wins. But you have to give Aaron Glenn credit. This team has clearly not quit on him. And although he is rough around the edges, and that still won't age well unless results start to continue to come, this is a team that clearly wanted to win. And, it was an emotional day, starting with the Nick Mangold tribute. The weather was terrible. The string of bad weather games that we've had at MetLife Stadium is just insane. I mean, an icy, windy rain for the entire second half. But I will say the crowd was into it because what you had were people who really wanted to be there. And I wanted to see them win. The whole structure of the rest of the season has to be built around, do you have something with Aaron Glenn? I think the story is written with Justin Fields. Maybe he's a backup to a veteran next year, or if you draft a rookie who's ready to play, maybe he's the backup to them. But Justin Fields cannot be your starting quarterback next year. I'm fine with you running him out there because winning games isn't the highest priority, but you have to give the rest of your team the chance to win a game. And that's the biggest issue with continuing to play Justin Fields. But the rest of the team has not quit. Breece Hall, who's riding around in a scooter or a little race car around the locker room, has one of his best games of the year, and every time he touched the ball, something big was potentially going to happen. He was getting contact right at the point of attack and eluding them in the backfield. He obviously takes the screen pass to the house. It was a really nice performance from Breece Hall. And even without Garrett Wilson, who's now going to be out 3 to 4 weeks, and I think the right thing to do is to put him on the IR to not let him injure that knee any further. They found a way to win a football game. And when there's bad elements and terrible quarterback play, it usually comes down to coaching. And I think you need to give Aaron Glenn a lot of credit for that win. Now, you then also hear that it seems like Aaron Glenn's going to come back, and all the reports that are going to come from ownership and from the GM, if these two are not linked together, is going to be that they're going to bring Glenn back. You need to have Glenn coaching with the confidence that he can work through these issues without being desperate and still has his job next year. It is why on the other side of the city and the other locker room in the Meadowlands, the Giants had to fire Brian Daboll because he was coaching desperately to try to win games to save his job, and it led to Jackson Dart getting hurt again. So you can't have Aaron Glenn coaching desperate. You can't have him forcing Garrett Wilson out there because you need to win games. You need to figure out which of these young wide receivers that you've brought in through trades or you've drafted, like with Arian Smith, have anything at all. Continue to scratch Allen Lazard. I'm very happy he did not play. It makes no sense playing him where you know who Allen Lazard is. He's not going to be on this team next year. So run out the Mechis and the A.D. Mitchells and Arian Smith, or if you want to bring up one of the young guys on the practice squad, see what you have there. Now, the best way to get a good look at those wide receivers may be to have Tyrod Taylor play, because right now Justin Fields can't get the ball out of his hands. And if you look, the offensive line played well again. I mean, Myles Garrett is coming off of a historic game last week, and Membu and Fashanu did a tremendous job against, the top one or two pass rushers in all of the league. And if you look at Membu, he now has games against TJ Watt and Myles Garrett where he looks really good, where he looks like the dominant player against those superstars. So you have to feel good about how the line played. You obviously feel happy about Breece Hall putting up a good performance. Isaiah Williams, who has been one of the weaker points of the special teams, he gets brought in, he gets scratched, he gets put on the practice squad, he gets elevated again. He has an electric day returning kicks. And Kene Nwangwu continues to be, when he's healthy, one of the best returners in the league. And he has another house call, and that was big. Right after a touchdown from the Browns, the feeling in the stadium was really ugly. You kind of felt like they were losing it, and then they flipped the script. And then the pop when Isaiah Williams does it on the next punt return, it was fun. MetLife Stadium, despite the somber mood with the Nick Mangold Memorial, and despite this team being so bad, there was a lot of life at MetLife Stadium, and it was great to see a win. And in terms of how this affects their draft position, listen, I just said it. If you look at all of the metrics outside of their quarterback play, this is an average team. At least they're performing that way. This is a defense that has played better, that has really shored up a lot. This is a secondary that, even without Sauce Gardner, has played pretty well. Brandon Stevens has really come a long way since those first 3 weeks where he looked rough. He has found his own in this system and has played really well. Will McDonald, 4 sacks and tons of pressures and looking like the guy he was supposed to be. Now, the Browns have what could be the worst offensive line in football next to the Bengals, so you want to temper that. But even there's other teams playing these bad offensive lines not putting up 4 sacks. And Quincy Williams, despite getting benched and his brother being traded, played well. If you look at the spots on this team, there's a lot of positives about the effort being shown. And again, that's a tick in the right box for Aaron Glenn. What's frustrating to me is that this team should be competing for a playoff spot. And it's not because this team is exceptionally talented. It's because the AFC is really bad. The graphic on CBS that's going around the NFL or going around Twitter is the teams that are in the hunt, quote unquote, have 3 wins. You can probably make the last wildcard spot with 9 wins this year. And it's frustrating that it's not going to matter, but I want to see Aaron Glenn continue to win and continue to show that he is the right head coach, at least for next year for this team. We look at another team with the Giants that have to fire their head coach during their rookie quarterback's first year. It's now the 6th or so straight team in which this has happened for. And you want to show there's stability here. Muji seems like a guy you can trust making trades. We'll see if he's the guy you can trust drafting players. Seems like he hit on Membu. And you want to see this team continue to function. They have the draft collateral if they want to trade up and get a guy. They're not going to be in position to be in the top 3 or 4. And if they are in that position, it means they will have lost to the Saints and to the Dolphins coming up over the next few weeks. And if you lose to those two teams, then there's something wrong with the coaching. So either outcome is bad. I'd rather see this team that now has a lot of draft picks go take the best player available, continue to build around what is a really good offensive line in the future, I think. A defense that has some bright spots. They're going to have to revamp the defensive line, and they're going to have to find, the right guy in the middle of that defense next to Jamie and Sherwood if Sherwood's going to be the long-term option here. So there's a lot of holes to fill. And I know Mendoza had a nice last drive. I watched a lot of that game against Penn State. He looks like a raw prospect. And the problem with Mendoza is he's actually an older guy. He's a graduate student. This isn't like Moore out in Oregon who's 20 years old and you're thinking, all right, if I draft him, then I definitely bring in a veteran because we can't play him right away. If you draft Mendoza, he should be starting right away. And maybe he turns out to be a really good pro, but I don't see the reason to completely bail out and tank on a season. Also, you get first dibs at Mendoza because of what it means for your team is that something else is really, really wrong. Teams don't go from 2 wins to 10 wins. It just doesn't happen in the NFL unless there's a drastic injury that's a part of it. And if you look at the 4 teams that are playing rookie quarterbacks, right now they're going to have the 4 top picks next year. So let's not go crazy about the Jets losing games in order to get the top pick. I don't think it's worth that effort. And, I don't want to talk about a 2027 draft. I want to see how this team can function next year too. But they have the draft picks to build another, hopefully stable roster for this team to take a crack at. If you look at Tankathon, so right now, Tennessee, New Orleans, the Giants, and Cleveland have the top 4 picks. The Jets currently sit at 5. They play Miami. They play the Saints coming up. And so they're probably going to end up picking somewhere between 5 and 8. That's my prediction. They have the Falcons as well. The Falcons have not been good. They've been a disappointment. So all told, you root however you want to root. But for me, and how I think the right way to approach this is that you want to see growth from this team every single week. And if you leave this season thinking we have 2 tackles that should be in the league for a very long time playing at a high level, you have a guard in Joe Tippmann who seems like he's pretty solid in that position. So you have a young offensive line that you can control for a while. You find a way to keep Breece Hall on this team. I don't know why you would look for a different running back. You can control him with a transition tag or a franchise tag, or you just re-sign him for 3 years. Give whoever this quarterback's going to be next year, a running back who's good in Breece Hall, an elite wide receiver in Garrett Wilson, an exciting young tight end in Mason Taylor, and then you hope one of these young wide receivers can be a number 3 or number 4 receiver on this team, and you bring in a wide receiver 2 next year. That's not a bad situation for a quarterback. And on defense, you would hope that Aaron Glenn is capable, whether it's with Steve Wilkes next year or not, putting together a defense that can be at least in the top 15. And that's what's going to be needed as they figure out the quarterback situation. And they have one of the best special teams in all of football. So this team does not feel as far away as it did while they're in the doldrums of 0-7. Now, a short week against the Patriots, a really good Patriots team with a head coach who I wish was the Jets head coach in Mike Vrabel. You get blown out against the Patriots on Thursday Night Football, and then it's a week and a half of Aaron Glenn having to yell at the media. I might turn around next week and feel a little bit different. But as things stand right now, you have to feel positive that they're still competing. But you hope we saw the worst of this season at 0-7. And looking towards the future, one that should not have Justin Fields as a part of it, you hope that you can piece together a team that can then be a little bit more competitive next year, and maybe a quarterback falls in your lap in the draft that you're happy to work with. Most of the really good quarterbacks in this league are not top 5 picks. So there's no reason at 6 you can't find your Josh Allen. I'm not saying anyone's Patrick Mahomes, but Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, guys like Jackson Dart, Lamar Jackson. These are not guys who were top 5 picks. These are guys that fell into the right position and were able to be really good right away, so their progression and their growth gets faster and faster and faster, and they turn into elite quarterbacks. And I think Jackson Dart on the Giants can be that now that he has Dable not just putting all of his hopes and dreams on one young quarterback's head. But the Jets are going to be a decent situation heading into next year, I think. That's how I feel right now after 2 wins in a row. So it feels a little bit better. It's been, we're going on almost a month since the Jets last lost a game. That feels pretty good. So the Patriots game, it's a short turnaround. The Patriots are really, really good. The Patriots are one of the best teams in football. They do a lot of things really well. They've figured out this offensive line. It's a top 10 or so offensive line in football, when that seemed to be a real issue for them the last few years. Their defense has been pretty consistent overall. And again, this is not a team where one thing jumps out of you that says, hey, they're going to kill you this way or that way. They're just a stable team with a really good coach. They're number 4 in the league in total points so far, and they're top 10 in points allowed. And what seems to be obviously the most important thing is they've got a quarterback in Drake May who's playing with a lot of confidence. He's completing over 70% of his passes, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's a mobile quarterback. There's not an enormous amount of weapons on this team, but he's making the most out of them, and this scheme is making the most out of them. Stephon Diggs has found a nice landing spot. Diggs operates better outside of chaos, and Vrabel and this team, this organization, is a consistent one. And when you find your quarterback Drake May, at least it seems that they have, and you pair him with a good coach that the team believes in, that's how you turn into a really good team. And short weeks, any night game at New England is just a horror show for the Jets. So I'm going into this game expecting it to be a blowout. I think Aaron Glenn has a tough decision on his hands. Going into last week, it was always going to be Justin Fields. You come off a win after the bye. He looked pretty decent. You had to play him again. But he just put up another one of the worst performances you'll ever see. It was against a top defense the Browns have, but still a non-competitive game. Throwing him on Thursday Night Football against a really good Patriots team, I don't know if you can expect anything more than he's given. So Tyrod Taylor might give you the best chance to win, but we know Aaron Glenn won't tell us, until right before game time. It'll be a real shock. It's a huge competitive advantage to not tell you which quarterback you have that's going to throw under 100 yards. But that's where we stand right now. This is going to work as both the Browns recap and the Patriots preview. And the Patriots preview, it's pretty simple. The Patriots are a really good team. If they lose at home on a short week to the Jets, it'll be a disaster for that team. And overall, I expect it to be a blowout. I think this defense still has some weaknesses as they figure out life after Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. And I expect the Patriots are going to know how to pick around those weak spots. And my prediction is something along the lines of 31-10 Patriots. But it is okay to feel happy as a Jets fan right now. Now that the losing streak is over and you can settle into this bad season a little bit more comfortably, don't be the fan that's getting upset because they're winning games. If anything, it means maybe they do have the right coach and there's pieces of this team that are worth building around. So this has been episode 30 of the Gangrene Against the World podcast. I'm Allan Simon. Thank you for listening.